All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the public meeting, but we're gonna take just a couple minutes and let some other people come in. So we'll start in about 1 to 2 minutes. Mark, let me know when you'd like to get started.
Let's begin at 4:35. I have 4:33 at the moment.
4:35? Okay. All right, just a couple more minutes, everybody. Thank you. All right, I have 4:35, so we will go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. I'm Caroline Charles, Community Relations Coordinator with the Planning Commission. Thank you all so much for attending the public meeting today. In just a minute, we will start the presentation to go over the proposed language of the Intergovernmental Coordination element for the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Immediately following the presentation, we'll have time for a Q&A to hear your feedback and answer any questions you may have. There are a couple ways you can submit questions to us during the meeting. You can either type directly into the chat box, or you can click on the raise hand button after the presentation and we will recognize you and unmute you so that you can speak. And if at any time you're having technical difficulties, please message us in the chat and we'll make sure that your comments get heard. Finally, this presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded to the project page. And now I'll hand it over to our presenter, Mark Hudson, who is an executive planner with the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Caroline. Lionel, if I could have my PowerPoint. We're here this evening to talk about the update to the Intergovernmental Coordination section of the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan. And we've been working on this for some months, and we have an initial draft that is available to review on the project page. We are accepting comments through many mechanisms, including this one. So that is going to be a dynamic document. We're going to be addressing those comments as we receive them. If I could have the next slide, Lionel. A little bit of background. I've already mentioned what the purpose of this virtual meeting is related to the update of the Intergovernmental Coordination section. This is a plan amendment that has been initiated by the Planning Commission. And the primary reason this is being done is it was last done in 2008. And as you can imagine, over that lengthy period of time, there is the need to do a lot of updates, citations, agency names, things of that nature, to ensure that it is all current, and also to, where appropriate, introduce some new concepts or some new structures to ensure coordination with Hillsborough County and its internal groups and also external agencies and municipalities. The document that you can review is shown in strike through and underline. So the existing text has been stricken through and that's being proposed, and the new text being added is underlined. In later renditions, we'll also have what we call a crosswalk. That's not available now, but will be available in the later stages. That shows you the existing policy and the proposed policy side by side, so it's much easier to garner how they've been modified over time versus looking through the strike through and underline version. And when that's available, feel free to reach out to us and we'd be happy to supply it. If I could have the next slide. So what is the purpose of this section or element of the plan? And it is the means and structure to coordinate the activities and responsibilities of the Hillsborough County with other local governments and agencies to ensure that we fulfill the overall goals that are enumerated in the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Next slide. Now, I will say the work we've done and the policies that are incorporated here are not all encompassing. These are the main ones that are being issues that are being addressed. And there are some instances where they are being addressed to a lesser extent in other elements. But we began this process by looking at the introduction, the inventory analysis, and the future needs and alternatives. This is the introductory text that kind of sets the stage for the adopted policies. This textual descriptions in these sections are by all means basically background and therefore do not require the adoption of the Board of County Commissioners, but all the policy changes that we are proposing do need to go before them for their approval. The first section of policies that are in the future, that are in the Intergovernmental Coordination element relate to how we maintain the comprehensive plan, how we evaluate it and ensure that the goals set forth are being implemented. And we have made several modifications to that and added a few new policies, and I'll get to those in a moment. There's also some additional language being proposed related to how we review development impacts. And those are, reviewing plan amendments and zonings and alike. Also, we feel that there's a particular need for the county to coordinate development on the borders between the county and the municipalities in Hillsborough County, which include Tampa, Plant City, and Temple Terrace. And one thing that we're hoping to do with that is to, in the future, develop joint planning areas with those groups so that coordination can be assured. If I could have the next slide. So here's a couple policies. It's not all the policies. I think I would it'd be a little bit of a mind-numbing presentation if I included all the policies in the plan. There's quite a few, but I thought I'd pull out a few that you may have an interest in. And here's one policy 1.1.4. which basically identifies the Planning Commission being responsible to research, data, and analyze materials that support the Hillsborough County Conference Plan when we're actually going through an update or adding new elements or things of that nature. Is primarily our responsibility, coordinating with Hillsborough County. We also have another policy, 1.2.7. This is one I mentioned earlier, that we feel that there's a need to develop these joint planning areas between the county and the municipalities. Several of the municipalities have been growing substantially over the last few years with annexations, and we think that those annexations and growth patterns can be better addressed through these joint planning areas and that cooperative effort between the county and those municipalities, and therefore we felt that this new policy would be very beneficial. Okay, the next slide. Some other sections we've worked at is we edited policies related to coordination of environmental infrastructure planning. So this basically identifies the ways that the county interacts with these other agencies and that are responsible for these type of issues. For example, for environmental issues, coordination with the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County, infrastructure planning, Florida Department of Transportation, things of that nature. And we haven't modified them a great deal, but there were certain aspects where we needed to bring them up to date. We did some very minor edits to the planning and programming for public education facilities. The primary thing that we did with this is moved it into a much more logical location within the document. It was kind of an add-on originally because it was developed much later than the initial element itself. So we moved that to be more closely associated with other infrastructure planning and not being listed much later in the element. And also we looked at policies related to the planning activities and how we coordinate those between the county and the Transportation Planning Organization and also the Planning Commission. So those relationships already exist, but we did bring those up to date and tailor them to our needs in the future. If I could have the next slide. So here's an example of a new policy that we've added, and it's basically maintain membership on the Tampa Bay Water Board of Directors and support the planning and development of adequate sustainable drinking water supplies for the region. This was a policy that didn't currently exist in the ICE, but we felt it was necessary, and we've incorporated it in as a proposed new policy within this section. If I could have the next slide. So here's a few more things that we've done. There's a lot of references to the Council of Governments, and for those who don't know who the Council of Governments are, they tend to be the elected bodies of all 4 jurisdictions in Hillsborough County meeting as one group. They meet very infrequently, and it's been very cumbersome as far as getting them together to address the issues that are identified in the comprehensive plan. We felt there are other groups that may be a little bit more flexible in meeting those needs, so we've removed that requirement. That doesn't mean the Council of Governments can't still meet and have those discussions on particular issues related to those 4 jurisdictions, but it wasn't felt that it needed to be part of the ICE. Also, we redefined policies related to the coordination of social services. Historically, we've referred to these groups that are served by these policies as economically disadvantaged. The new terminology and a more broader terminology that we've changed it to is underserved communities. Also, there is some movement to remove or eliminate the element that relates to economic disadvantaged groups, and not to lose the important issues that are addressed in that element. We've merged some of those existing policies into the ICE to be sure they continue to be implemented in that group. The service to those groups are not interrupted. Also, there's some edits that we've done to public services and conflict resolution. And these are, of course, how Hillsborough County, if there was an issue with, say, a municipality and they had to go to an independent arbiter or group to, work through those conflict issues and to address those, this is where it's spelled out. And we did make some minor edits to clarify some issues. And finally, the last section that we worked in is actually a new section. And if asked, this is probably the most significant change that is being proposed as part of the environmental coordination element or section. And that is, we've developed several group of policies that promote sustainable and resilient communities in Hillsborough County. We utilized some sample element that was developed by the Department of Economic Opportunity for Sanford, Florida. We also got some assistance from some materials that were produced for the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, and we developed a set of policies to address the rising issue of ensure that our communities are resilient to changes in weather and the like. If I could have the next slide. So here, I'm not going to read all these policies, but I am going to show them all up on the screen. I believe there's 8 in total, but I'll just identify just a couple. Policy 1.10.2 talks about the county joining the Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition and also participating in developing and implementing a regional resiliency action plan. So that's a fairly significant new activity that the county would be undertaking, along with other the other municipalities and the agencies involved. If I could have the next slide. Here's another 3 policies that we developed. Again, we'll leave them up on the screen for a moment so you can take a quick read. But what I would point out is policy 1.10.3. This is partner with other agencies. Of course, this is for the county. Partner with other agencies and communities to educate and inform the public about potential impacts of the natural and man-made disasters and how residents should prepare for these events for the protection of lives and property within Hillsborough County. So that's something else that the county would, based on this policy, work with these other groups to educate and inform the public about these issues. Next slide. Another interesting policy is 1.10.6. This is again working with relevant partner agencies and institutions to provide resources that strengthen the resiliency of neighborhoods, such as improve access to affordable housing, healthcare, and nutritional food options. Again, another aspect of building resilient communities and how the county would work with other agencies, both internal and external, to address that particular issue. If I could have the next slide. Now, this is the schedule, at least the beginning of it, that we're working towards. We're having a workshop with the Board of County Commissioners on March 21st. The presentation will be somewhat similar to this, and we will also be heard by the Planning Commission for their recommendation on April 11th. I will say we are receiving comments, and we're continuing to address those comments. I'm just aware of some comments that we received from an internal department in Hillsborough County called the Community and Infrastructure Planning Department, and we're going to be addressing their concerns. So we will be tweaking this over time. And ultimately, the final draft will be presented to the Board of County Commissioners on April 21st. We'll be seeking their concurrence to transmit this up to Tallahassee, the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, to get their review and comments on it, and then come back in a couple months, and we'll be sure to advertise that date substantially when it comes back for their consideration of adoption. If I could have the next slide. And that concludes this brief presentation. Again, it was a lot of words and really a lot of material to take in there. We're here to answer any questions you may have and revisit some of these things. Of course, this won't be the only opportunity. There'll be those opportunities at those other meetings as well for your interaction. And with that, I guess I'll just turn it over for questions.
Yeah, so just a reminder to everybody in the meeting, if you'd like to ask a question or make a public comment, you can either write in the chat or click on the raise hand button.
I don't see anyone raising their hands at this point. I have a question for you, Mark.
Okay.
How long will you be accepting comments on this update?
That's a very good question. Now, we will accept comments almost up until, very shortly before when it goes before the Board of County Commissioners. But for us to particularly take the time and analyze them and perhaps get additional feedback from you, I would strive for anyone from the public to try to get us their comments by the end of March.
Okay. And then out of curiosity, other than Planning Commission staff, Who has been involved in the ICE update to get us to this stage in the draft?
We've, of course, been very closely involved with different departments within Hillsborough County, including the county attorney and their planning staffs in particular. We've also received comments from the municipalities and other agencies outside the county, like the Environmental Protection Commission. So we are seeking all those that are involved with coordinating these activities to get their feedback. So it's been a joint effort up until this point.
Okay, thank you.
I still don't see any hands or questions in the chat. We'll give it
Perhaps
another.
I'll just give out my email address real quickly in case anyone wants to reach me. My email address is Hudson M, that's HUDSONM as a Mark, and that's at plancom.org, PLANCOM.org. So if anyone wants to reach out to me and have discussions on any particular policy after you've read the document, or if you want to contact me at a later date and say, Mark, how has this changed since you presented it back on February 22nd, please reach out to me.
And thank you, Melissa, for putting his email in the chat. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that's all I have.
I'm not seeing any hands raised or any questions. Again, if anybody has any, questions later on, please feel free to contact us via his email and also the project page. You can still submit comments there as well.
Well, thank you, everybody, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. But and again, we're striving to get this in front of the Board of County Commissioners, and look forward to you interacting with us to be sure we can develop the best product possible.